If you've ever looked into learning Finnish, you've almost certainly heard this sentence. Finnish is a perfectly phonetic language. In other words, you read exactly what you write and you write exactly what you hear. And honestly, compared to other languages such as English and French, this is unbelievably true. But in today's video, we're going to set the record straight. Because after years of learning and speaking Finnish, I've discovered that the story isn't quite that simple. There are a few tiny situations where even Finnish breaks its own rules. And the third exception is one that actually causes some problems even to native speakers. So definitely look out for that one. So now let's answer this question. Is Finnish really a perfectly phonetic language? Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today. If you're new here, my name is Stefano and you're watching Lingua e Passione, the channel about my and your passion for language. Now, before we get into the details, we should probably agree on what we mean by phonetic. Without making things too technical, usually when people refer to a phonetic language, what is meant is very, very simple. When you read a word, you know how to pronounce it, and when you hear a word, you know how to write it. That's it. English is not like that. If you think about words such as through, though, thought, and tough, they all contain the same letters, O, U, G, H, but somehow they're all pronounced differently. Because of this, we can safely say that English is not phonetic. Finnish, on the other hand, is wonderfully predictable. Every vowel has one sound, every consonant has one sound. Long vowels are written with two letters, long consonants are written with two letters. Once you've learned the alphabet, you can pronounce almost any Finnish word you come across. But almost isn't quite the same as always, is it? Alright, let's dive into the first exception. It has to do with compound words. That's words that are made up of two or more words. Take this word, for example. It's made up of puhe, speech, and kieli, language. The meaning is spoken language. But when you write it, there's only one K. But when you listen carefully to native speakers, when they pronounce it, they will say something much closer to puhekieli with a double consonant, a double K. So for clarity, the spelling says puhekieli, but the correct pronunciation is puhekieli. This happens in many compounds where the first part ends in e. Let's see a few more examples. Not huonekalu, but huonekalu. Not tervetuloa, but tervetuloa. Not venevaja, but venevaja. Not rinnepolku, but rinnepolku. Now, this isn't completely random. It has historical reasons, and linguists even have a complex name for this phenomenon. I think it's called boundary gemination in English, loppukahdennus in Finnish, but for us learners, it's enough to know that this is one of those places where pronunciation is slightly richer than the spelling suggests. The second exception is much more common. It's the letter combination NG. Now, the letter G on its own is rather uncommon in Finnish, and it's usually pronounced as G, like in these words. Agenda, energia, giganti. The meanings are pretty obvious. So if you see a word like this, for tire, hoop, ring, you might be tempted to say rengas, rengas, right? But when it follows the N, the G does not have that sound. The two letters together, N and G, represent a nasal sound very, very similar to the English sound in the word sing. So let's see a few more examples. Kengät, shoes. Hengittää, to breathe. Helsingissä, in Helsinki. As far as I know, NG is the only sound represented by two letters instead of one in Finnish. Let me know in the comments if I'm mistaken. Finally, my favorite exception, and it's the word for heart. Its basic form is this, sydän. But if we decline it to mean something like of the heart, for instance, we get this. Again, what we see is sydämen. But if you listen to native speakers, what you'll hear is much closer to sydämen with a double M. We have, again, one consonant in the spelling, but two in the pronunciation. And this exception in particular actually causes some spelling mistakes even among Finns. So much so that in order to remind people of this little rule, there is a wonderful Finnish saying that goes, sydämeen ei mahdu kahta M. Literally, two M's do not fit into the heart. But here's the joke. In Finnish, ämmä is also an old and rather unflattering word for a woman. So the sentence can be interpreted also as, there's no place in your heart for two women. It's a wonderfully nerdy pun, and personally I love it when languages come up with such jokes. So, is Finnish a phonetic language? Absolutely. But is it a perfectly phonetic language? Well, not quite. These three examples remind us that no writing system is a perfect photograph of a spoken language. Even one as beautifully regular as Finnish has a few little surprises hiding beneath the surface. And I actually think that that's a part of what makes languages so fascinating. If you're learning Finnish, please do not worry about these exceptions because they won't stop you from being understood and speaking the language freely. If you're Finnish, can you think of any other places where pronunciation and spelling do not quite match? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Moikka!